One of the hardest things to accept in life is the delay. You make dua, you do everything right, you strive with sincerity, and yet nothing seems to happen. You check the door again and again, and it's still closed. It's in these moments that your faith gets tested, not in theory, but in reality. Because while it's easy to trust Allah when things are moving, when life is unfolding the way you expect, true trust is measured in the waiting, in the silence, in the unseen. But here's the truth that we often forgetting. What feels like a delay to you is not a delay in the sight of Allah. It's precision, it's timing, it's wisdom. Allah does not forget. He is never late. He is never unaware. The delay is not random. It is intentional. The Prophet N taught us that Allah responds to every single dua. He doesn't leave a single prayer unanswered. But the answer comes in one of three ways. Either He gives you what you asked for, He delays it for a better time, or He gives you something better in place of it, even if you don't recognize it. That delay, that silence, it might be protecting you from a hardship you don't even know about yet. It might be preparing you internally to receive what you're asking for externally. Or might be giving you time to detach from something unhealthy before the new door opens. But we struggle with this. Why? Because we've trained ourselves to associate Allah's presence with visible movement. If things are improving, we say, Allah is helping me. But the moment things stand still or get tough, we start to doubt. Why isn't He answering? What did I do wrong? And sometimes the doubt becomes so loud that we stop praying altogether. We stop asking, we pull back. And in doing so, we miss the beauty of what Allah is doing behind the scenes. Psychologically, humans hate uncertainty. We want resolution. Our minds crave closure. We would rather receive bad news than no news, because silence triggers anxiety. But Allah isn't silent because He's ignoring you. He's silent because He's teaching you. Delays develop your spiritual endurance. They train your heart to detach from immediate gratification. They teach you to love the process, not just the prize. Philosophically, a delay reminds us that we are not the center of time. We are not the masters of when and how things unfold. Only Allah holds that authority. Your timeline is based on your limited understanding, but Allah sees the entire picture. And when you trust His timing, you acknowledge that He is not just the creator of your desires, but the creator of the perfect moment to fulfill them. Think about Yusuf Ayas. He was thrown into a well as a child, sold as a slave, wrongfully imprisoned. And yet, years later, he became a minister of Egypt. If you judged his story from just one chapter, you'd think he was abandoned. But if you look at the full story, you see how Allah orchestrated every step with perfect timing. He wasn't late. He was preparing Yusuf for great. That's what we often miss in our own lives. We zoom in too close. We judge the entire picture by a single pixel. And sometimes Allah withholds something not because you aren't ready for it, but because it's not ready for you. That job, that spouse, that opportunity, it might still be undergoing its own development before it's right for you. When you understand this, you stop asking, why is it delayed? And you start asking, what is Allah teaching me in this delay? Let me remind you, delays are not denials. They're invitations. Invitations to increase your uduas, to refine your intentions, to build resilience. They are opportunities to clean your heart of impatience and ego. Because often we don't realize how much of our trust is tied to our timeline, not to Allah Himself. So when the delay feels long, don't disconnect. Don't stop praying. In fact, that's the moment to pray harder. Not because your voice will get louder, but because your heart will grow softer. That's when sincerity reaches its peak. When there's no guarantee except your hope in Allah. And don't forget, some of the greatest blessings in your life will come disguised as delays. That job you didn't get, that relationship that didn't work out, that opportunity that slipped away in the moment you thought it was a loss. But now you look back and say, Alhamdulillah, it didn't happen then because Allah saved you from something your eyes couldn't see. That's the kind of hindsight only time and trust can reveal. So when you're stuck between prayer and answer, between effort and result, remember your job is not to control the clock. Your job is to keep the faith, to keep walking, to keep planting. Because when the time is right, the harvest will come and it will be better, more beautiful and more beneficial than anything you could have planned for yourself. Just because the door hasn't opened yet doesn't mean it won't. It means Allah is perfecting what's behind it. Keep knocking with faith, not frustration, because Allah's delay is never a punishment. It's a preparation. A common misconception many people carry, without even realizing it, is the belief that Tawakkul, trusting Allah, means sitting back and doing nothing, waiting passively, hoping that if you just say, I trust Allah, everything will sort itself out. But Islam doesn't teach us to wait in idleness. It teaches us to move with purpose. And that's where the true depth of Tawakkul lies. It's not passive surrender, it's active reliance. You see, trusting Allah doesn't mean abandoning effort. It means doing your best with full conviction that success lies not in your hands but in His. It's about showing up fully while letting go of the illusion that you control the outcome. It's that delicate, powerful space between striving and surrender. And it is in that space that real faith grows. Think about Prophet Musa. He was being pursued by Pharaoh and his army. In front of him, the sea. Behind him, one of the most ruthless tyrants in history. The people with him began to panic. They said, we're going to be overtaken. It's over. But Musa didn't freeze. He didn't sit and wait for a miracle with folded arms. He declared with absolute certainty, no. Indeed, my Lord is with me and He will guide me. And what did Allah command? Strike the sea with your staff. Not stand there, not wait, but act, move, try. That moment is profound because the action, striking a sea with a stick, made no logical sense. But that's the lesson. You act with faith even when the logic fails you. You move forward even when you don't see how it could work. That's the kind of trust that parts oceans. Now, let's bring this down to a more personal level. Many people today are paralyzed, not because they don't believe in Allah, but because they're waiting for everything to be certain before they take action. Waiting for a sign, waiting for confidence, waiting for the risk to disappear. But that's not how faith functions. Faith is tested most in the moments when you have no visible guarantee. That's when your claim of, I trust Allah, is either proven or exposed. Psychologically, this kind of passive waiting is actually a defense mechanism. It's your mind trying to protect you from failure, from rejection, from the unknown. It's easier to say, I'm waiting for Allah's timing, than to face the fear of putting yourself out there. But what we often forget is that sometimes Allah's timing you is waiting on your action. Or sometimes the sea doesn't part until you raise your staff. Philosophically, Tawakkul is a radical act of balancing personal responsibility with divine submission. You do your part as though everything depends on you. And then you trust as though it all depends on Allah. Both are essential. Effort without trust leads to anxiety. Trust without effort leads to delusion. But when the two are combined, you enter a state of powerful peace. And this is something our Prophet unexemplified time and time again. Think about the Hijrah, the migration from Mecca to Medina. He didn't just walk out and hope for the best. He planned every detail. He took a guide, selected a less traveled path, waited until the right time, and even left someone behind to return belongings to their owners. This is not random wandering. This is strategic action paired with absolute trust. And even then, when he and Abu Bakr were in the cave and the enemies were right outside, what did he say? Do not be afraid. Allah is with us. That's Tawakkul. It's not laziness in the name of faith. It's work, action, and then comes surrender. In practical terms, this means stop waiting for the perfect conditions to act. Start the business, apply for the job, apologize, forgive, heal, move forward, make dua, and then walk toward the door. Don't wait for it to open magically while you're sitting far away from it. Get up and knock, even if your hands are trembling. That is the spirit of the believer. That is Iman in motion. And yes, sometimes you'll act and things won't go the way you hoped. That doesn't mean your tawakkul failed. It means Allah redirected you. And even in that redirection, there's mercy because you moved with sincerity. The beauty of tawakkul is that even when the plan shifts, the soul stays steady because you weren't attached to the result. You were attached to the one managing it. So don't let fear disguise itself as faith. Don't confuse inaction with surrender. When you say, I trust Allah, prove it. Take that step. Make the move. Say the words. Apply the effort. Strike the sea. Even if it doesn't make sense, because what looks like a dent to you might be the very place where Allah splits the sea wide open. The miracle may not come you before the effort. It may come because of it. One of the most liberating truths you'll ever come to realize in your journey of faith is this: you are not in control of everything. And that's not a flaw in your design. It's a mercy. We live in a world obsessed with control. From the moment we wake up, we're bombarded with messages telling us we must have a plan for every step, an answer for every question, a solution to every challenge. And while it's good to be responsible, to plan and to think ahead, there comes a point where that desire for control becomes a prison, a mental and emotional trap that keeps us in a constant state of worry, anxiety, and over-analysis. That's where many people break down, not because the situation itself is too heavy, but because they're trying to carry what was never theirs to begin with. When Allah says in the Quran, and Allah is the best of planners, 8G30, He isn't just giving you a verse to recite, He's giving you a principle to live by. You do your part, but then you let go. You remind yourself that Allah sees what you cannot, knows what you do not, and is controlling what you're incapable of grasping. That's not passivity. That's spiritual maturity. That's intelligence rooted in surrender, not in control. Now think about it. How many times have we tried to force something to happen? A relationship, a job, a situation to go the way we want it to, only to be met with wall after wall. And then sometimes much later, we look back and realizing, Alhamdulillah, it didn't work out the way I wanted. Because what Allah had planned was far greater than what we had imagined. But at the moment, because we didn't have the full picture, we stressed, we overthought, we doubted. Psychologically, the need for control is rooted in fear. The human mind craves predictability. When things are uncertain, our brain starts projecting every worst case scenario. It does this because it's trying to protect us from perceived danger. But this mechanism, if left unchecked, becomes spiritually toxic. It convinces us that, if we can't control it, we should fear it. But Islam teaches the opposite thing. If you can't control it, trust the one who does. You see, control is a burden. It's heavy. It's draining. It puts you in a constant state of alert, as though the weight of the universe is on your shoulders. But you were never created to carry that. You were created to worship, to serve, to try your best out, and then to hand over what's beyond your reach to the one whose reach knows no bounds. This is the true essence of tawakkul. It's not abandoning effort. It's understanding the limit of your effort. Let me be very clear. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-carrying. You stop acting like the result is entirely dependent on you. Islam is a balancing action and trust. Striving you and surrender. This balance is where peace lives. Think about the life of the Prophet N. He planned. He prepared. He did everything humanly possible in his missions, but he never let the results define his worth. when he went to Taif and was rejected, he didn't say, "Why didn't Allah make them accept me?" No, he turned to Allah and said, "Oh, if you are not angry with me, then I do not care." That's it. He did his part and the rest was left in Allah's hands. We often blur the line between our responsibility and Allah's. We forget that outcomes, results, acceptance, victory, change, these are in His hands alone. Our job is to be sincere in our effort. That's all. The moment we accept this, we stop trying to manipulate outcomes and we start aligning ourselves with Allah's wisdom. And what a beautiful freedom that is. Because once you realize that you're not in control of how people see you, how life unfolds, how the future plays out, you return to the moment. You begin to focus on what is in your control, your intention, your effort, your attitude, your prayers. Everything else, who responds, who leaves, who stays, what doors open, what doors close, is not your domain. It's Allah's. This is not just a spiritual concept. It's emotional healing. When people come to me broken by situations they couldn't fix, I don't give them false hope. I give them clarity. You were never meant to fix it alone. Let go of what you cannot control. Let go of the obsession with results. Because faith isn't just praying with your hands raised. It's sleeping peacefully knowing Allah is handling what you can't even see. So take a deep breath. Stop trying to control every outcome. Surrender the weight. Trust that the one who knows your heart also knows what's best for it, even if you don't understand it yet. You were never expected to carry what only Allah can handle. So stop doubting and start trusting. That is where true strength begins. You know, one of the most dangerous things we allow into our hearts is doubt, especially when it comes to Allah. And I want you to think about this carefully. Doubt doesn't always walk in the front door of your life waving a flag. No, it creeps in quietly. It hides behind overthinking, masks itself as being realistic, and sometimes even disguises itself as humility. But the root of it, if you really peel back the layers, is mistrust in Allah's wisdom and plan. Let me ask you, where do you think doubt comes from? Who benefits when you start questioning whether Allah is really listening to your does, whether your pain has a purpose, or whether your efforts even matter? It's not Allah, it's Shaytan. Doubt is one of the most subtle, most dangerous weapons Shaytan uses to weaken the believer. He whispers, what if it doesn't work out? What if Allah doesn't help you? What if you're just not good enough? These thoughts don't feel sinful in the moment, but they feel like self-protection. But they quietly erode the most powerful thing you have, your connection with your Rabb. And the truth is, the Quran is full of stories showing how believers were tested with uncertainty. But the ones who held firm in their faith were the ones elevated. When Ibrahim was thrown into the fire, there was no logical hope, no exit, no reason to believe that survival was even possible. But did he doubt? Not for a second. What happened? Allah commanded the fire to be cool. That's not just a miracle story. It's a reminder that doubt and miracles cannot coexist. Where there is complete faith, Allah sends unimaginable help. The moment you entertain doubt, you interrupt your spiritual clarity. It's like tuning a radio into static. You might still hear fragments of the message, but it's distorted. And when that doubt becomes habitual, it clouds your ability to see things through the lens of the hereafter. You begin to rely only on what makes sense in this world. And that's where the danger lies. Because the believer doesn't just operate on logic. They operate on alibu tawheed, on the certainty that even when you don't understand who He does. Now let's take this deeper. Psychologically speaking, doubt often masquerades as control. When life becomes unpredictable, the human ego craves certainty. So it begins to doubt anything that feels risky, like trusting Allah without knowing what's coming next. But this mindset doesn't give you peace. It gives you anxiety. It convinces you that you can only be safe if you know exactly what will happen. But that's not how life works. And more importantly, that's not how faith works. Faith means surrendering control, not because you're weak, but because you trust the one who is never weak, never unaware, never unjust. And there's something else here. Philosophically, doubt is an illusion of the self trying to take the place of God. It says, I need to know everything before I trust. But we're forgetting we are finite. We don't even know what will happen in the next 5 minutes. And yet we act like we can predict the outcome of a journey Allah Himself is guiding. What arrogance hides inside that fear? It may appear like caution, but often it's the ego trying to resist surrender. That's why the Prophet N taught us, ask Allah for certainty and well-being. Certainty, yakin, is not about being sure everything will go your way. It's about being sure that everything is going His way. Even if it hurts, even if it confuses you, even if it delays what you desperately want. So, what's the practical lesson here? Whenever you feel overwhelmed by life, whether it's financial stress, relationship pain, health struggles, stop and check your heart. Ask yourself, is this pain making me doubt Allah? Or is it inviting me to trust Him more deeply? Because every test is a crossroad. One path leads to despair, the other leads to elevation. Don't confuse silence from Allah with absence. Sometimes when you feel most alone, that's when you're being carried. You don't see it now, but you will. And when you do, you'll realize that every moment you refused to give in to doubt, every time you chose faith over fear, was being recorded, not just in your book of deeds, but in the transformation of your soul. So the next time that whisper enters your mind, telling you that you're doomed, that your prayer is pointless, that Allah has forgotten you, pause and reply to it not with anxiety, but with a firm heart that says, I trust my Lord. Even when I don't see the way, I know He is guiding me through.